More than 6.5 million pounds of various raw, non-intact beef products are being recalled because they could contain salmonella. 57 people in 16 states have gotten sick after eating the meat.
Have you ever stood in the meat aisle and thought, how do I actually know what's in this? That label doesn't tell you which plant processed the meat. Doesn't mention the company behind it killed 10 people last summer. There used to be a butcher who knew your name. Now, 4 corporations control 85% of America's beef. Their names aren't on the label. They're behind it. 8 of the worst. 3 that raise the bar. Let's go. Most videos like this rank stores. We're going further back, past the store, past the shelf, to the companies that actually raise, kill, and package the animal before it reaches your cart. The invisible layer? We rank them using USDA enforcement records, CDC outbreak data, federal court settlements, and investigative reporting. Not opinion. And here's the thing nobody tells you. The chemicals these companies add to processed meat, sodium nitrites, phosphates, preservatives, the World Health Organization looked at more than 800 studies and classified processed meat as a Group 1 carcinogen in 2015. By the end of this video, you'll know who they supply, what to avoid, and what to buy to protect your family. Some of these names will surprise you. One was literally called the worst company in the world. One isn't even on your label, you've never seen their name, but they're everywhere in your beef aisle. Worst number 8, Perdue. Everything about Perdue says farm fresh. The branding, the wholesome imagery. When you see it in the chicken aisle at Walmart, Kroger, or Food Lion, it feels like you're making the right call. For some of their products, you actually are. Perdue has a split personality, and we'll give the good side credit later. But the conventional line, the bulk of what they sell, tells a different story. A Perdue turkey plant in Washington, Indiana was flagged in USDA data as one of the worst performing poultry plants in the country for salmonella. Not middle of the pack, among the worst, nationally. The brand selling you farm fresh is running a plant the government's own numbers say has a serious contamination problem. And most of their conventional chickens? Still raised in crowded barns. Birds bred to grow so fast their legs buckle under their own weight. The organic line uses different birds, different barns. But the regular stuff in most shopping carts? Standard factory conditions. Here's the move. Flip the package. If it says organic or shows a welfare certification, that's the real product. If it just says Perdue and nothing else, same cooler, same brand, completely different animal, literally. Next, a brand you only think about 1 month a year. November, Thanksgiving, Butterball. And their record includes animal cruelty charges, hidden camera investigations, and one of the worst salmonella scores for ground turkey in the country. Worst number 7, Butterball. They sell 1 out of every 5 turkeys in America. For millions of families, Butterball is Thanksgiving, the centerpiece, the tradition. You'll find it at Walmart, Target, Kroger, Publix, Safeway, basically everywhere. Here's what that tradition comes with. Butterball's plant in Mount Olive, North Carolina, has been identified in USDA data as among the worst in the country for salmonella in ground turkey. Not below average, among the worst, nationally. But the contamination isn't even the part that keeps me up. 2006, undercover investigators film workers at a Butterball slaughter plant punching and kicking live birds. On camera. Dr. Temple Grandin, the world's top authority on humane animal handling, reviews the footage. Her verdict: severe animal welfare problems. 5 years later, different facility, hidden cameras again, workers stomping turkeys, dragging them by their necks, bashing birds' heads with metal bars. The sheriff raided the farm. 6 employees charged with animal cruelty. Some pled guilty. 1 pled guilty to a felony. 2 investigations, years apart. Different plants. Same pattern, same company. And they still run a toll-free hotline every November to help you cook your turkey to perfection. The customer service is great. It's just everything before the customer service that's the problem. Ground poultry from any big processor, cook it all the way through. No tasting from the pan. And if you're over 50, your immune system isn't what it was at 30. That's not me being dramatic. That's your doctor. Now, our next company might be the biggest gap between image and reality on this entire list. A name your deli counter treats like a luxury upgrade. Then in 2024, their plant was linked to an outbreak that killed 10 people. What inspectors found inside will change the way you look at the deli case. Worst number 6, Boar's Head. The name behind the glass at the deli counter, the one that costs more, feels worth it. You see it at Publix, Safeway, Kroger, Costco, sliced to order, wrapped in paper, treated like the premium choice. In the summer of 2024, that image collapsed. The CDC traces a multi-state listeria outbreak to Boar's Head's plant in Jarrett, Virginia. When it's over, 61 people sick, 19 states, 60 hospitalized, 10 dead. The largest listeria outbreak in the U.S. since 2011. Boar's Head recalled over 7 million pounds of ready-to-eat meat. 7 million pounds. Not a typo. But here's the part that should terrify you. Inspectors had already logged 69 non-compliance reports at that same plant before the outbreak. Black mold on ceilings, insects, blood pooling on floors, old meat residue still caked on packaging equipment. 69 warnings, and nobody shut it down. A food safety expert from George Washington University called the conditions honestly shocking. Finding roaches in a restaurant gets the place closed overnight. Finding mold and blood in a plant feeding deli counters across 19 states? Apparently that's just paperwork. Boar's Head permanently closed the Jarrett plant in September 2024, killed off their entire liverwurst line. The premium brand, the expensive one, was running a plant with conditions that would shut down a roadside diner. If you're over 50, this one matters. Treat all ready-to-eat deli meat as high risk. Any brand? Heat it until it steams. Listeria doesn't care what you paid per pound. And check the recall pages once in a while. 30 seconds online. Genuinely could save your life. We're leaving the deli counter now, heading to the hog farms. Our next company has the worst humane slaughter record at any single plant in the country. And the communities living near their operations have been breathing in a nightmare for over 20 years. Worst number 5, Smithfield Foods, one of the biggest pork processors on the planet, owned by WH Group, a Chinese conglomerate, and the largest acquisition of an American food company by a Chinese firm in history. You've seen their stuff whether you know it or not. Eckrich, Armour, Nathan's Famous hot dogs, store-brand pork at Walmart, Kroger, Food Lion, Piggly Wiggly. Smithfield is behind a lot of it. The Animal Welfare Institute analyzed USDA enforcement records from 2016 to 2018. Smithfield's plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, had the single worst humane handling record of any large slaughter plant in the country. 41 incidents in 3 years, including what the government calls egregious, animals not properly stunned before slaughter. That's the plant. Now let's talk about what happens before the plant. North Carolina, over 2,100 industrial hog farms, more than 3,300 waste lagoons. Picture an open pit the size of a football field, full of hog feces, urine, and whatever chemicals were in the feed. The waste turns pink from bacteria, gets sprayed into the air as fertilizer. The people living downwind, largely Black, Latino, and Native American communities, have been breathing this in for decades. Higher rates of infant mortality, kidney disease, anemia, published in the North Carolina Medical Journal. Not speculation. When Hurricane Floyd hit in 1999, those lagoons burst, communities flooded with toxic sludge and dead hogs. Smithfield promised cleaner technology, signed a formal agreement in 2000. 25 years later, the lagoons are still there. But don't worry, they're harvesting methane now and calling themselves green. Imagine someone dumps a swimming pool of raw sewage next to your house, promises to clean it up, and 20 years later it's still there, but now they're billing it as renewable energy. With Smithfield pork, go for whole cuts. Skip the heavily processed stuff and flip the package. If the ingredient list reads like a chemistry textbook, that's not meat. That's something engineered to remind you of meat. Speaking of chemistry textbooks, our next company is on your chicken, your pork, your beef, and your wallet. They just paid $55 million for allegedly rigging the price you pay. Worst number 4, Tyson Foods. If you buy chicken in America, you've probably bought Tyson. They're everywhere. Walmart, Kroger, Costco, Target, Safeway, Albertsons. Their brands include Jimmy Dean, Hillshire Farm, Ballpark, plus a massive chunk of store-brand poultry. When one company is this big, the problems are this big too. USDA records put a Tyson pork plant in Waterloo, Iowa, in the top 10 worst for humane handling violations. 30 incidents in 3 years. Multiple Tyson poultry plants land in the worst categories for salmonella. The company behind a huge share of America's cheap chicken has some of the worst scores for the bacteria most likely to make that chicken dangerous. And then there's price. In 2025, Tyson agreed to pay $55 million to settle a class action, alleging they conspired with other major packers to fix the price of beef. If you bought beef between 2014 and 2019, you probably overpaid, and they knew. During the pandemic, Tyson plants became some of the deadliest COVID hotspots in the meat packing industry. Workers, many of them older immigrants, stood shoulder to shoulder on high-speed lines. Congressional investigators said Tyson showed callous disregard for workers' health. Remember that phrase? It's going to come back at number 1. Bad salmonella numbers, bad slaughter records, price-fixing settlements, workers treated as disposable. That's not a bad quarter. That's a business model. With Tyson Poultry, buy raw and cook to 165. Separate cutting board for chicken, always. Salmonella cross-contamination in the kitchen is where most home infections actually happen. Our next company is one you've never heard of. Their name isn't on a single package in your store, but an international group called them, and I'm quoting, the worst company in the world. Not the worst meat company, the worst company, period. Worst number 3, Cargill, America's largest privately held company. You have never seen their name on a package of meat, not once, but they're one of the biggest beef processors in the country, and their product flows into store-brand ground beef at Walmart, Costco, Kroger, and chains nationwide. The environmental group Mighty Earth published a report calling Cargill the worst company in the world. The charges: driving mass deforestation in the Amazon and the Cerrado Savannah to feed the cattle that become your hamburger. And they're not just destroying forests overseas. Cargill paid $32.5 million as part of the same beef price fixing settlement we talked about with Tyson. Combined with Tyson's payment, $87.5 million to consumers who were overcharged. And historically, Cargill supplied beef was traced in a serious E. coli outbreak at Sizzler restaurants. Meat contaminated with fecal matter that made it to customers' plates. Fecal matter in the beef from a company you didn't know existed. You can't avoid Cargill by choosing a different brand. They don't have a brand. They have a supply chain. Their beef flows into store-brand ground beef and burger patties at Walmart, Costco, Kroger, and regional chains. Anytime you see the cheapest bulk ground beef with no farm or processor named, you're in Cargill country. When you can, choose beef that names the farm or carries a third-party certification. That's your only way to step outside Cargill's shadow. We've been looking at bad companies one at a time. But what happens when the biggest ones stop competing with each other and start working together? Worst number 2. The cartel. This one isn't a company, it's the system itself. Tyson, Cargill, JBS, National Beef, the Big Four. Together they control roughly 85% of the beef processed in America. Between them, most ground beef and those mystery 90% lean chubs behind store brands at big chains flow through one of their plants. And the lawsuits say they used that power to rig the market. Plaintiffs allege these companies made a deal. Stop competing. Restrict cattle supply, push prices up, squeeze ranchers on one end, overcharge you on the other. Tyson and Cargill settled for a combined $87.5 million. JBS paid $83.5 million to ranchers. An expert estimated total consumer damages closer to $1.9 billion. The settlements? Pennies. Think about what that means for you. It's not just what's in the meat, it's what you're being charged for it. Between 2014 and 2019, if you bought beef and you're watching this, so you probably did, you were likely paying a price these 4 companies agreed on together. Not a market price, a cartel price. When you can, support a local butcher or smaller processor, even once in a while. Buy larger cuts on sale, portion and freeze at home. You're not just saving money, you're stepping outside a system that was built for 4 boardrooms, not your family. Which brings us to number 1. And this one needs your full attention. The worst humane slaughter record in the country. Workers who died of COVID and had their families denied compensation. And a government fine for 6 deaths that costs less than a used Honda Civic. Worst number 1. JBS USA, subsidiary of the Brazilian company. JBS-SA, the single largest meat processor on Earth. Most Americans have never heard the name, but JBS and its subsidiaries supply beef, pork, and chicken to Walmart, Costco, Kroger, Sam's Club, and grocery chains across the country. You'll rarely see JBS on a package. You'll see brands they own or supply, Swift, 5-star beef, or generic beef under big box store labels. If you buy meat in America, you've almost certainly eaten their product. The Animal Welfare Institute analyzed USDA records. JBS operates 7 of the 10 worst large livestock slaughter plants in the United States. 7 out of 10. Those plants racked up 132 humane handling incidents. 18 were classified as egregious, the government's word for animals not properly stunned before slaughter. Animals still conscious during bleeding and dressing. That's not activist language. That's the federal government's own classification. At a JBS pork plant in Ottumwa, Iowa, over 15,000 pigs showed signs of being beaten. Paddle marks, bruising, across 177 different production days. A federal inspector documented a pig still alive and moving after its throat had been cut on the line. 177 days. That's not a lapse, that's a Tuesday. Then came COVID. JBS's plant in Greeley, Colorado, one of the earliest and deadliest outbreaks in the industry. At least 292 workers infected, at least 6 dead, including a 78-year-old man named Saul Sanchez who'd worked the line for years. When the families filed for workers' compensation, JBS denied the claims, said the infections weren't work-related. OSHA fined them $15,615 for 6 deaths. That's $2,600 per human life. A union official called it insulting, said it was incentive for them to be more unsafe. I told you to remember the phrase callous disregard from the Tyson section. OSHA apparently shares the sentiment. 6 people dead on the job, and the fine wouldn't cover a month of rent in the town where they died. Multiple E. coli recalls in beef. Deforestation citations across global supply chains. A company website full of sustainability pledges. And enforcement records that read like the opposite. If your grocery store's meat department was a school and JBS was a student, they'd have been expelled years ago. Instead, they're still processing, still on the shelf, and you still can't tell from the label. With anonymous source beef, go for whole cuts over ground. Ground mixes meat from many animals and many plants. That's where contamination concentrates. Cook to 160, no pink. And look for third-party certification logos. Certified Humane, Global Animal Partnership, American Humane Certified. These often exclude the worst suppliers. The logo you should trust isn't the brand. It's the certification stamp. If you're still here, drop an 8 in the comments. I want to know you made it, because now we flip it. We've been through the worst. Let's talk about who's actually doing this right. But first, if you're sitting there thinking, that's great, but I buy what's in my store and I buy what I can afford, I hear you. This part is for you. Whole cuts over ground. Always. Ground meat mixes everything together. A pork chop, a chicken breast, a steak, that's one animal, one cut, less risk. The meat should be cold when you pick it up. Bulging or leaking package, put it back. And remember, most recalls don't start in your fridge. They start at the plant. But cold chain failure in transit is how a small problem becomes a big one for you. Flip the package. If the ingredient list is longer than your grocery receipt, sodium phosphates, sodium nitrite, erythorbate, artificial flavors, that's not meat. That's a chemistry experiment shaped like meat. Fewer ingredients, closer to real. The word natural on a meat label means almost nothing. Certifications do. USDA Organic, Certified Humane, Global Animal Partnership. Those mean someone actually checked. And here's one more. If the front of the package is all store branding and marketing, and the only processor info is a tiny establishment number or a name you don't recognize, assume it came from one of the big processors we just covered. That's not paranoia. They control 85% of the beef. And if you're over 50, steam your deli meat before eating it. Every time. The CDC says so, not me. These rules are free, they work at any store. And they'll protect you better than any brand name. Now, who's doing it right? Best number 3, Perdue, the premium lines. Yes, same company from number 8. Same brand, different shelf. Because Perdue is genuinely 2 companies in one. The premium side committed to the better chicken commitment for part of its line. Slower growing breeds, more space, better barns. Animal welfare groups have recognized these as real reforms, not a label change, a structural change. But I'm not going to pretend the whole company transformed. Most of Perdue's volume still comes from conventional birds. Some plants still have salmonella issues. This is a company where one corner of the shelf is genuinely better than anything from a major producer. The rest, what we covered at number 8. Look specifically for the organic or welfare certified labels. Budget play. Use the good stuff when chicken is the main event. Save your money everywhere else. Our next pick goes much further. No feedlots, no factory barns, no chemical additives, and they ship frozen to your door. Best number 2, Primal Pastures and companies like them. This started in 2012, 50 chickens in a backyard in Southern California. Today they ship nationwide. Their model is basically the opposite of everything we just spent 20 minutes talking about. 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, pork, lamb, no corn, no soy, no nitrites, no feedlots. Animals on open pasture, and they'll tell you exactly which farm your order came from. You can trace it to the field. They ship frozen with dry ice, which, here's something most people don't consider, can actually be safer than that fresh package in a grocery cooler that may have had its cold chain broken twice before it reached you. Now, this costs more, significantly more. I won't pretend otherwise. So here's how to use it. You don't go all in. Pick your highest risk items, ground beef, deli-style products, and source those from companies like this. Fill the rest with carefully chosen supermarket cuts. A few smart swaps on the items that matter most. That changes your risk profile without blowing your budget. And if this video is helping you see things differently, if you want more of this, the stuff behind the labels that manufacturers hope you never ask about, hit subscribe. We do this regularly, no sponsors from the companies we review, just information you can actually use. The next video might matter even more than this one. Now, what if you want this kind of quality, but you also want to shake your farmer's hand? Our number 1 isn't a brand, it's a model, and it's the closest thing we have to getting that butcher back. Best number 1, small pasture-raised humane certified producers. Let me be honest up front, this isn't for everyone. These companies cost more. They're not in every state. Some only sell at farmers markets or through farm shares. If money is tight or your options are limited, I get it. But if you have any flexibility at all, here's what better actually looks like. Companies like White Oak Pastures in Georgia, or your regional version. Small operations built around a pasture, traceability, and third-party certification. Animals live outdoors. Slaughter happens at smaller plants with dedicated oversight. And the supply chain is short enough that you know the actual farm, not just the brand, the land. Now look at the ingredient list. Beef, salt, maybe pepper. That's it. No phosphates, no nitrites, no erythrobate, no chemicals you can't pronounce. After everything we've covered today, all those long ingredient lists, all those additives, seeing a label that just says beef salt almost feels like a joke. It's not. That's what meat is supposed to look like. They carry certification logos, Global Animal Partnership, Certified Humane, American Humane Certified. These mean someone outside the company actually showed up and inspected the operation. That's rare. Remember that butcher from the beginning of this video? The one who knew your name, who'd never sell you something he wouldn't eat himself. This is the modern version of that person. Someone who can tell you where the animal lived, what it ate, and how it was treated. That relationship didn't die. It just got harder to find. Search pasture-raised meat plus your state. Hit up farmers markets. Look for CSA meat shares. Try Eat Wild or Local Harvest online. Start with one supplier for ground beef and deli items, the highest risk stuff, and let the grocery store handle the rest. Before we wrap, a few names that didn't make either list. National Beef, one of the big 4. Named in the price-fixing suits. Part of the cartel story. Watch them. Pilgrim's Pride. That's JBS's chicken subsidiary. Their chicken shows up under its own name and in store brand chicken products at discount and big box chains. Everything we said about JBS at number 1, it flows downhill. Hormel, huge processed meat company. Mixed bag, some decent products. Spam or a pack of their deli meat and count the ingredients. You'll be there a while. Not bad enough for the worst list, not clean enough for the best. If your brand isn't here, that doesn't mean they're safe. It means we ran out of room. Check recall pages, read ingredients, and trust your nose more than any logo. Let's bring it together. Perdue's conventional side coasting while the premium side quietly improves. Butterball selling holiday tradition on a record of cruelty and contamination. Boar's Head charging you a premium for deli meat from a plant with mold on the ceiling. Smithfield dumping hog waste on communities for a quarter century and calling it progress. Tyson failing on salmonella, welfare, worker safety, and price all at once. Cargill invisible on your label, devastating everywhere else. The Big 4 cartel fixing beef prices while you picked up the tab. And JBS, 7 of the 10 worst slaughter plants in America, 6 dead workers, and a fine that wouldn't cover their funeral costs. 3 that prove it doesn't have to be this way. Perdue's premium lines showing a big company can change when it decides to. Primal Pastures showing what the model looks like when you build it right from the start. And small certified producers keeping alive the one thing all those corporations killed: trust. Wherever you shop, you now know what to look for. Whole cuts over ground. Cold chain always. Temperature, not color. Ingredient list, not brand name. And if something looks wrong, it probably is. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Every company on the worst list is betting on the same thing: that you won't look, that you won't ask, that you'll see the logo, see the price, and move on. For a long time, that bet paid off. After today, it shouldn't. Which of these surprised you most? If you're the person who's been buying meat for your family for 30, 40 years, who actually remembers when the butcher knew your name, your experience matters more than any report I can pull. Drop a comment. A lot of you have been asking us to go deeper. Inside the processing plants, inside the slaughterhouses, what happens between the farm and the package. If you want that video, tell me. Enough interest and we'll make it happen. A like helps more people find this, and I'll see you in the next one.